Hello there, it's Jan from JB Crafts. Thank you for joining me today. I'm back with a card tutorial for you today, and this one is actually a family birthday. This one was made for my eldest daughter, who celebrated her birthday earlier this week, so she's actually received this card now. So yeah, I'm going to show you how I've made it. It's relatively straightforward. It's what I call a straightforward card. Several techniques involved in there. So I've done quite a bit of matting and layering, which is sort of part of my style. And then I've got this beautiful, beautiful stamp. My eldest daughter is a writer. She's self-published out there on the internet under the name of Angel McGregor. She has several fantasy fiction novels out there. If any of you would like to go and take a peek, I'm sure she would be very grateful. Yes, and that was a very sort of, planned plug for her. She deserves it. But yeah, I thought the typewriter fit in perfectly, and I'll show you where I've got that stamp set from, on there. And we've done a little bit of heat embossing. It just lent itself. It was so, I wanted that real rich black, so I've stamped it in a pigment ink and then just added some clear embossing over the top of it. Added some extra textures to it, so there is a slight element of mixed media. We've got some lace in here, and I've got a doily in the background, and then we've got I'm going to call it a wax seal, but it's not wax. I'm going to show you how I've made this during the tutorial to match in with the rest of the design. It is her 35th birthday, so we do tend to put numbers on a bit more of a significant birthday. And inside I have actually got, from the same stamp set, there was the little row of books, which again is perfect for her. She's a bookworm, she works in a bookstore, and she writes books, so yeah, absolutely perfect. And then I've just done a little bit of hand doodling around here just to sort of draw your eye into the sentiment. So yes, I would love to see her face when she received this. As I say, she's already got this now, but at the time of filming, her birthday will be at the beginning of next week. So yeah, so let me show you how I've actually put it together. So I'll put that one just to one side. That's the one that's actually going to go to her. And I've started out with a shop bought card this time. I tend to sort of save these ones. I love the scalloped edge cards, and I tend to save these for more special birthdays and things like that, rather than just using them all the time. So they're actually sold as a 7-inch square card. Now, as far as shop bought cards are concerned, that is the envelope size. So when you want to pop something inside there, it does need to be just that fraction smaller. So in this case, the card is 6 3/4 inches. So it's worth bearing that in mind when you're actually buying things that are already made for you. So I've worked from that card blank, and we're going to work our way up through the mats and layers. I'm not going to decorate the inside of this one because obviously this is a copy for the purpose of the tutorial. So we've got a few mats and layers going on. We're going to do some stamping and embossing, and then I'll show you how I've made that faux wax seal. So again, just to bring the mats and layers in, I have got a piece of satin mirror card here in the silver, because I've gone down the blue tones again. I wanted a cooler colour. If I was working with, say, pinks or oranges or yellows, I'd probably go with gold as an accent colour. Because this is that lovely teal blue again, I've gone with the silver. So this one I've come down a 1/2 inch from 6 3/4 to 6 1/4, and that's going to give me a nice margin sort of around the outside in that white. Now I've managed to get a little bit of a mark on there, which I think is probably ink that I've picked up from somewhere. So I think most of that's just come off. I've just noticed that when I picked it up, but yeah, we're okay. So that one's going to go directly onto the card blank. And then I've got the teal layer, and this is just linen cardstock from my stash here. And this one measures 6 by 6 inches. So I've literally just come down and the 1/4 inch to leave that nice 1/8 inch border around there. So that's going to be my next layer. I'm not going to stick these together just yet, because being very frugal, we're actually going to cut one of our extra layers out of this one before I get going. And then on top of there, I chose some paper. I've just been through many of my paper pads here, and this one is just writing. It's not particularly anything specific, but I just thought that went with the penmanship and the typewriter and the books and everything along her idea of being a writer. So this one is just 1/8 of an inch smaller, 5 7/8 of an inch, to just give that really little skinny border of the blue peeking out there. So we've got slightly staggered borders again. We've got a slightly wider silver one than we have the blue, and that's very much my style. I don't like them all regimentally the same style, but that's just me. If you wanted to keep them all the same size border, then you can just adjust them accordingly. So before we stick any of this down, I'm going to put the card out of the way because I need to remember, and I always forget, that we've got some thread wrapped around here before I stick it down. So I'm going to keep the card blank out of the way for now, just to remind me not to get carried away and start sticking things down. Pop that up there out of the way. And the first thing I want to do is actually cut one of my apertures out of here, because I've got a beautiful torn edge square to map my focal point on, and that was cut from the background layer. Nobody's going to know that it's missing. It's got plenty of strength with the silver layer and the paper. So I've actually got a couple of my nesting die sets today. I have got my stitch squares, which is what we've got for the focal point, and then I've also got the torn edge squares, and I've taken a couple of those out that fit together size wise, and I'm going to take that torn edge one out of here. So pop the stitch one to one side for a second. I need a little bit of tape just to anchor that, and I'm literally just going to take that out of the middle of here to utilize my card. So bring in my plates for the Gemini, and I do tend to use the smaller plates wherever I can. I do have the original size Gemini, but this will fit nicely just inside my smaller plates. And I'll just pop that through the Gemini. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, it is behind me, so I do have to pop off camera for a second while I'm die cutting. You can hear it working away there in the background, and it is very quick with those smaller plates in there. So yeah, we've got the die cut here, and just take that away, and it's done its job for me. So we'll get rid of that other plate there. So I've actually got the piece that I need for my mat layer. Nobody's going to know that that bit is missing out of the middle there, so that can be stuck down now. And then I've also got the piece that I need to mat my stitch square onto. Okay, so I'm just going to again pop that one to one side, and we can start sticking a few layers together now. So just to get these ready, so I'm going to choose my all-purpose glue. It is a go-to as far as those paper layers are concerned. It's my favorite glue, and I'm just going to pop a little bit around the edge of this layer, remembering not to go all over it because I have a hole currently in this one. And just to make sure that it's sealed nicely, I'm just going to put a tiny bit around where we cut that aperture out as well. And then this one will nestle on top of here. And this is why I love the wet glue. Drop it down there and then just wriggle it into place until you're happy with those borders, and then you can add a little bit of pressure on there to get it sealed. And then we can also add that one to my satin card there. Now, I tend not to use the all-purpose glue on the satin layer purely because it is a solvent-based glue. If you're careful with it, it does the job beautifully, but if any of it seeps out of the edge, it can affect anything that's a coated cardstock. So I'm going to leave that to one side and just bring in my acrylic glue, which I've got in my little applicator bottle here, and this will do the job and not risk damaging the surface of that shiny cardstock there. So again, we'll just add some of that to the back there, and we can get this one lined up now as well. So this is a little bit quicker grab glue, so I need to make sure that my positioning is reasonably accurate, and then give that one a press down as well. Now I'm actually going to build up all these layers on the front. As I say, I've gone sort of just touching on the edge of mixed media. Basically, you know, changing the mediums up. Currently we've worked with card and paper stock, but I'm actually going to bring in some other elements here. So we're going to bring in that lace. And I've also got a couple of extra pieces of paper. This is the same as the matte layer underneath. And then I've just chosen a contrasting paper to add a little bit of interest and break up some of the design. And what I want to do is trap my lace under the edge of here. So we'll stick these two together first so that they can be drying. And I've actually got these exactly, I want these to be the same length, but I always cut them slightly longer so that I can get this positioned, and then I can always trim the edge off it. So again, I'm just going to add a little bit of that all-purpose glue. Now we're back to the cardstock again. Get that one in place. And what I want to do is concentrate. I did actually pop the sizes on here. This is the same height as the white piece at 5 7/8 by 2 inches. And then I've just come 5 7/8 the same and down 1/8 of an inch to 1 7/8. So it is a very skinny border. And I'm just going to lay that down with the glue and then literally straighten this up until I'm happy with it. A little bit overhanging at each edge, because then once it's dry, I can snip that bit off. So we'll just leave that to dry for a second. I'll put my block on that so that it dries nice and flat there while we work on this panel. So I've actually got a piece of lace from my stash. I have a whole drawer of lace in different colours and styles, and I thought this would look nice just down the side with that element peeking out. So because I'm going for a different medium, I'm just going to bring in my red line tape, and I have marked on here roughly where I want this to go. So I'm just going to pop it along the line that I'd marked ready, which is about 3/4 of an inch in from the edge, and then snip that with my scissors level with the edge of the white paper there. So I've now got an anchor for the piece of lace to sit. So we'll take the liner off there, and then I'm going to add that piece of lace in, which is also a little bit longer than what I need. So I want the straight edge to run level. Just pop that one to one side with the edge of the tape there, and I'm going to line it up at the top and then just follow that tape all the way down so that I know it's straight. And then again, I can cut this bit level with the white card at the bottom and get rid of that piece. So that's anchored that down that side. And it's not that obvious it's there, you know, the white on white, but it's just that little bit of extra texture in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring this piece back in, and we're going to seal this just over the edge of the ribbon so that it's sort of tucked underneath. Now, a couple of things first with this one. Let me just pop the lid on that glue. First of all, I need to just trim those edges off that we've had here. So I'm literally just going to use my scissors now against the blue. And this means that you don't have to worry about getting this straight in the first place. And again, trim that one off level with the blue. So that's the 2 scrap pieces done with. I've also edged my card with a little bit of ink, and I just chose something that sort of married up with the colour scheme. So I'm just going to do those 2 cut edges that we've just exposed. So this is actually an Oasis opaque pigment ink from Spectrum Noir, and it just fit in nicely with the rest of the design there. And now I've also got to address the fact that the lace is higher up. So rather than having this uneven, I'm just going to grab a piece of scrap cardstock here, and I'm going to put this, I'm going to bridge it underneath the edge of here. So it doesn't actually need to be that wide. We need a length of it that will sit nicely inside my piece there, and probably about 1 inch or so. It's a great way of using up bits of scrap card as well, this. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that on the side that's away from the lace. So again, little tiny bit of glue on there. I'm going to use the acrylic purely because it's a little bit faster drying than the all-purpose. And we're going to stick that on this side here. And that should be sufficient to sort of bridge. The lace is not particularly thick, but it will stop it sort of wobbling that little bit as we go along the edge. So again, I'm going to stay with that acrylic glue there. Just run some down here. And then I'm also just going to dot it along the lace. And that's why I've stayed with the acrylic glue, because any embellishments, the white acrylic behaves much better. And then again, I've got a couple of lines in my design here on the paper where I want to line this up to make sure it's straight. So I'm just going to look for those pencil lines. Okay. And once I'm happy with that position, so this runs level with the bottom of the white paper and the top of the white paper there. And I came in approximately 2 3/4 inches from the blue layer, or 2 7/8 of an inch from the outside of the silver there. But again, you know, it depends how wide a piece you're working with. It depends how wide your lace is. And then we'll just get that one put into place. Okay, so the idea with this now is that we're going to start and build up that top layer. So we'll just put the lids on the old glue again so that they don't dry out while I'm explaining the rest of it. Now what I want to do is I'm going to bring in the piece that we cut is going to be the bit that houses our main focal point with that beautiful typewriter. But again, just before I do that, I've actually got a stash of doilies in my collection of many other things, and I'm going to use one of these again just to break up a little bit of that design around the back of here. So I'm going to use the blue as a positioner, and then I just want a little bit of it popping out at the top there, and I'm going to bring in my dot runner just to secure this in place. It doesn't have to be glued all the way down, but I'm just going to pop a little bit on the back here and possibly a bit just gently on some of those edges, not the whole thing. I just want to anchor it in a few places there to make sure that it's going to behave. So again, I'm going to go sort of around about there. I want a little gap at the top and a little tiny gap there, and again we'll get that one stuck in place. And then this is going to go over the top. Okay, so I'm going to stick this one in, and then we're going to do that, breaking all the vertical elements with that horizontal piece. And I've got some nice shiny sort of thread for this. This is actually like a turquoisey blue. So we're going to run this across here just to break up that design. Whenever I've worked with vertical elements, I always like to have something just going across it to break it up. Now I'm actually going to put the thread over the top of this panel. So we're going to pop that one down as well. And then the other one's going to sit on top of it when we finish the embossing, the stamping and embossing. So I'm going to get all this ready, and then we'll do the stamping and embossing. So what I want to do with this one is just leave about the same distance of the pattern here and here. Make sure it's running straight, and we'll get all that stuck down. Pop the block on it just for a second while we actually start and think about the other elements in here. So I've got that thread to put on, and then we're going to do some stamping with the embossing as well. Forgotten the word there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the thread, and we're just going to pop that around that panel that we've created. So that should be okay now. That glue dries reasonably quickly. So again, you know, decide roughly whereabouts you want to pop the thread. And I'm going to go sort of round about a third up. And I'm going to pop some of the dot runner on the back, like so. And then attach my thread on the back here where the dots are. And I want to go around sort of several times. So I'm just going to wrap it around, anchor it on the back there. I've got a couple of dots in the middle. and then literally just get some of that thread undone. And then we're literally just going to come round and round a couple of times. Don't roll down onto the floor. Different angles. And I can sort all that out when we've finished. And then literally stick those again in the middle, so that this is anchored in place, ready. And then just decide whereabouts you want these to sit. So I'm going to have them cross over in the middle like so. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that now. So I think we're at a point where this one can go onto the card blank now. So what did I do? There we go. Put this onto here and get this one stuck down. So again, that all-purpose glue. And we've got all the base part ready now to receive the embellishment. So we'll do some work. Put a bit of glue on the back of that thread to make sure it doesn't come unravelled. And then this one is just going to sit nice and square in the middle of our card blank, and we can leave that to dry for a second now. So again, we'll pop the old block on there just to help it dry nice and straight. Pop that to one side, and we'll come to some stamping, I think, next. So I've got my stamping platform at the ready. I think we're about ready for a new piece of paper in there. So let me just address that first. I've got some, it's just copier paper that I put inside. I'm not actually stamping off the edge of the design today, but I do tend to keep this inside. Anybody that hasn't come across this before, this is actually the Tim Holtz stamping platform, but I do keep a piece of just fun foam. It's about just over 1 millimetre thick, and I just find it gives me that extra cushion for the stamping. And then I normally put a piece of scrap paper in just in case I'm over stamping on anything, and it saves the foam getting damaged. On this case, I'm actually just going to be stamping straight into the centre of the design. So what I've done is I've taken that stitch square that I showed you earlier, and this one is about 3 5/8 inch square there. So again, you know, depending on the design and the stamp, I wanted something that was going to encompass my my stamp. And I've just cut that one out of a piece of Nina cardstock for my stamping. That's my chosen cardstock. And then I'm going to bring this right down into the corner here, anchor it in place, and then that fabulous typewriter set. Believe it or not, this was a free gift on a magazine that I bought not long ago. I think I've got the magazine here as well now. Then we could end up with a big crash moving things off there. But yeah, the magazine was the Creative Stamping magazine, and it was issue 133. And the stamps were from our fabulous Lou Collins here, her textures range. And this is stunning, it really is. I haven't actually got any of Lou's products, so this one really appealed to me with the typography. And they, you know, I mean, you've got like an A5 sheet here, absolutely full of designs. So we're going to use the beautiful typewriter that just leapt out at me when I saw this. I don't buy a lot of craft magazines, but I just love this stamp set. You've got a more modern version of the typewriter as well, like the electric typewriter. This was the panel of books that I'd used on the inside there. I've just coloured them in with some of my pencils just to add a little bit of colour to tone it in with the design. You've got lots of sentiments in here, and I love, I've not actually used it on this card, but you've got lots of definitions. There's one for flower, there's one for love, and there's one for friend. And then I've used the little happy birthday, which fits. The butterfly here is separate, so I've stamped the happy birthday as if it was coming out on the paper. So we'll take that out. I need the typewriter out of there. I'll just pull that one out. And I also need the happy birthday as well, so we'll take the greeting out as well. Pop those to one side. I'm going to do the happy birthday afterwards, but I want to position my typewriter in here. And this has been cut specifically to fit this particular size stamp. When I did the original one, I stamped first onto a piece of paper, a piece of the Nina, and then chose the square that it fit in nicely. So I've actually cut the square ready this time. So again, I'm just going to line that up the best I can to make sure that it's reasonably central, about the same distance round it. Pick that up with my platform. Now, it did bother me a little bit that the piece of paper almost looked wonky, but I think, you know, coming out of a typewriter, it probably is going to be a little bit wonky. So yeah, we've got that there. Now, what I want to do to get that really deep black image, rather than use black embossing powder, I'm actually going to use a clear embossing powder, and I'm going to use black ink. So we'll just get this bit ready. My spoon's hiding in there somewhere. Get that bit at the ready. And then I've used my VersaFine Clair. This is a really, really juicy, dark black pigment ink. And the pigment ink stays wet just that little bit longer because the pigment sits on top of your card and doesn't soak in like a dye ink. It stays wet enough for you to be able to add the embossing powder in there. So what we're going to do then is we're going to take our, I'm running out of space now. Let me just move that across a little bit and move that one. And you can see where we're at here. So I'm going to ink this up. Really nice ink this. I love this one for doing this technique. And I'm going to give it a couple of coats to make sure it's a really nice solid black. So we're going to press that down. I'm going to get my little pressure tool here and just apply some nice even pressure onto that card. And then lift it. You can see we've got a perfect image, which is testimony to the quality of the stamps. But just because I want that real jet black image, I would love to own one of these typewriters. I keep keeping my eye out looking for one. I'd really love an old typewriter. So again, pop that down. We'll put that back on, put that away for a second. Add a little bit more pressure on there, just to get that second coating on. And then I'm going to emboss the typewriter. So we're going to take that away. We're going to bring that embossing powder in. And then I'm just going to pop this over the top, and that ink will catch now the embossing powder there. And you'll see it goes sort of frosted. You can just see how that image has lost that sort of solidity of the black and gone frosted now. So I'm going to take that. I only need that for that one part. So I'm going to put the lid back on because I have had many of accidents with embossing powders and things. And then I'm going to grab my heat tool, and we're actually going to heat emboss that one. So just make sure I've got wires down here that are crossed over. So first of all, I'm going to get the heat tool up to temperature. Just move that for a second. I do need it again in a minute. I've got my little magic hands here to hold this so that I don't burn my fingers. Just here. And then once your heat tool's up to temperature, I'm going to start in one corner here and just wait for that powder to start melting, and you'll see that beautiful rich black. And then just chase the powder around there. Once it's gone black and shiny, you can move on to the next part. You can just see how once it starts going, it's really easy to just get that powder melted there. And then we're good to go. So if we show you this now, you can see that gorgeous shiny texture on there. Absolutely beautiful. So I'm just going to give that a second to cool down, and then I'm going to pop it back in my stamping platform. I didn't actually emboss the happy birthday. I just thought the two different textures were really nice. So I'm just going to take the surplus ink off the stamp there and move that one out of the way. And then we're going to bring the happy birthday in. So we'll pop this back in here. Put the magnets back on to keep it in position there. I'm going to put this one back on the carrier sheet so that I don't get it lost with something. The number of times I've put something over it and picked a stamp up, lost it for days until I've tracked back and thought, actually, I had such and such out. I wonder if that's where it went. So all I'm going to do now then is, this position's lovely. It's just been made to fit inside that panel. And again, you could have anything written on here. You could personalize it with a name. You know, if you've got little individual alphabet stamps, it could be an image. You could actually pop a little photo in there. There's all sorts of different ways, but I just wanted that happy birthday, and it's a little bit of a wibbly wobbly one, like a typewriter font. So yeah, it's been thought through really well. I'm going to use that same black ink, just ink this up and give that one a nice press, not too hard with the sentiments. You don't want to distort the type, and I think I'm quite happy with that. So again, take the stamp out of there, and then just be aware that the pigment ink does take a little bit longer to dry. If you remember, we said it was wet long enough to get the embossing powder. If I touch this now, it will actually smudge. So I'm just going to pop that to one side for a second. I'm going to pop my stamps away and be a good girl. So we've got the happy birthday back in there so that I know that they're all back together. And then what I've done is, whenever you start heat embossing, it will warp your card slightly. If you look at this now, there's just a slight wobble on it there. So the Nina cardstock is a lot lighter weight than the cardstock that I use for card blanks and die cutting, things like that. So what I've done is I've cut a second one in that heavier card. This is the 300 GSM smooth white cardstock, and I'm going to stick these together just to give it a little bit more substance. And then I'm also going to create, if I've got enough card left, I think I've got a piece big enough, yeah. I'm just going to do a matte layer. I wanted, again, just to lift it slightly, so I've gone for about just under 3 3/4 inches there, just to lift it off the blue. So what I'm going to do is bring my guillotine in there just while that's drying, and 3 3/4, I'm going to come back to the 1/16 of an inch before it and just trim that down. 3 3/4, back a 1/16 of an inch, and that should be big enough now to just have a tiny little silver border peeking out to break it up from the blue. So again, pop all that to one side. So what I actually want to do very carefully is stick this bit onto the white layer first. So I'm going to put the glue on the front of the white, and this is purely just to strengthen it. I suppose if you were putting it straight onto the silver, you would get the same effect. But I like to have things nice and stable. So again, I'm going to drop that one straight over the top, line it up. Trying to avoid the happy birthday. I really don't want to smudge that at this point. Make sure that it's nice and straight. The embossing is all dry, so I'm not too worried about the typewriter, but I do want to stay away from that sentiment just for now to make sure it's totally dry. You could give it a blast with your heat tool if you're worried about it. Turn it over. Give that a real good press down, and then we're going to attach this one to the silver. So again, because I'm using that coated cardstock, I've stayed with my acrylic glue there. And this one's going to sit just with that tiny little bit of frame. It's not much, but it's enough to break it up. You can just see that catching the light there, just to break it up from the blue that we're going to stick it onto on the matte layer. So give that a good press down. I think we're good to go there. And then I'm going to elevate this bit with a little bit of foam tape. So I have massive reels of foam tape from Sticks 2, and I've just gone for the little thin one here. I'm just going to pull a piece off there, and then we're going to add this to the back here, just to raise this one element up slightly. I didn't want to put too much dimension on it, but just enough to give a little bit more interest there. So again, round the edges, and then I usually put a bit in the middle just to anchor the centre as well. So whatever's left on the piece I've cut off now, I usually cut in half and then just pop those straight up that middle section. Okay, so we can take the edges off those now, the liner off those, and we can get that one put in place. So again, just take those layers off, and then once we've done that, I'll show you how I made that faux wax seal. And it's a great way of sort of making things coordinate with what you're actually working with. And it's not my own invention. I saw someone do this and thought, wow, what a really clever idea. Gave it a go, and it was so easy. But yes, I'm going to do that more often. And this was the perfect opportunity. I just wanted an embellishment to link all this together. So we've got our card there that we had drying. That should be lovely and dry by now. Okay, and this one's going to go straight over the top of there within that blue torn edged piece that we did, and get that stuck down. So there's two pieces in the middle have sort of supported the center, but we've just got that little tiny bit. There's not a lot of elevation there, but just a little bit. And then I needed something here to sort of anchor it all together. So that's where the faux wax seal came in. Now you could use a wax seal, absolutely. I did consider that because I have got some wax that's a similar colour to this, or I could have gone with the silver for the wax. But as I say, I saw this technique and thought, right, I need to have a go at that. So I'm just going to pop my silicone mat down because I don't want it to stick to the desk. And what I've done is I've just prepared a couple of bits here ready. And just get those out. So move the numbers to one side for a second. So what I've done is I've taken a scrap that was left over from that pattern paper. This is the same as the background, and just use one of my little circles and cut out a circle that was roughly the size I wanted for the wax seal. So I've got so you can see where I've cut it out of here, and that's what we're going to work on to. Now the bulk of the actual seal is made with clear hot glue rather than wax. Okay, so if you don't have all the things to melt the wax, you know, with a little burner and the spoon and things like that, this is a great way of sort of making faux ones. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a blob of hot wax onto here, and then I've just got a little heart on this one, and I'm going to drop that into the wax. Now, because these are made of like a brushed metal, it does stick a little bit, but it peels away. I did a little bit of a test run to try it. So I have got another glue stick because I think we're going to go through the one that's already in there. So we'll pop that in ready. And you want the glue to sort of cover that circle, but not right to the edge. So I'm just going to squeeze maybe 2 or 3 goes on here, and I want a puddle of glue, but not right to the edge of the paper. So that's probably enough. It's a wee bit smaller than the paper. And then all I'm going to do is, because I've got writing on here, I've got a little mark on mine which tells me which way up this goes. And then I'm going to drop that in and just spread the glue out so that it reaches the edge of that circle. Okay, and then leave that to dry. Oops, caught the glue there. All right, we're just going to leave that for a second for that glue to actually firm up a little bit. So while we're waiting for that, I'll just pop those numbers on. Like I said, this one was a significant birthday. She's 35, and I've cut those out of some tiny little number dies with the whoops, that glue's getting everywhere now. Where's it gone? There we go. So this is just going to go up in that top corner. That's been very friendly. Let's get rid of you. That's one of those little glue strings that's decided to attach itself. I think we're gone there. Yep. So while I'm just waiting for that glue to set, we'll pop these in place. I did originally think about putting these in here, but I did like that typeface with the typewriter font to go in there. So all I'm going to do is just pop a little tiny bit of that acrylic. It's nearly always the acrylic glue for the embellishments. And this is just going to sit at an angle in that little space in the top corner there. So I've cut these a couple of times. I cut them once in some scrap blue and then in the white, just to make them a little bit more substantial again. Just get rid of that excess, and I want those to be sort of higgledy-piggledy as well rather than straight. Now it's just gone very dark in here. I think it's about to start raining, so my apologies if you can hear rain on the roof. You know, most of you know that I work in my conservatory, so if it does start making a noise, I do apologise. So we're almost finished there. We just need that seal, and I've got a couple of things left to do to that. So this should have set enough now. So all I'm going to do is just gently tease it away from that brushed finish. And you think, oh, well, that's all right, Jan, but you can't see it. So in come the metallic pens. Now, first of all, I tried this with black. I thought I'd go with the black because we've got such a lot of black on there, and this is what I ended up with. This is pewter, this one. These are Spectrum Noir metallic marker pens. And I did the black, and I did quite like it, but it wasn't really enough of a contrast. It was too similar to this. So I decided, because we'd got the blue up here, we'd go with the blue down here to echo that. So all I've done is taken my marker and just, it's got two nibs on. So I started off with the smaller one, and literally I've kept, rather than going like you would if you were colouring, I've kept it flat, and I'm just going to highlight where that raised edge is on here. Okay, and I like the fact that these are not uniform. They're not exactly perfect, which, you know, wax seals in my mind, when you think about the old days, the wax seals are not a perfect shape. Oops. And then I'm going to take this further round. Now I've got my paper's a little bit wobbly there. I didn't quite spread it out far enough, so I'm just going to trim. I don't want the paper sticking out underneath, so I'm just going to trim that bit off the edge there. And then now that I've got that sat down, I'm just going to take this round the edge as well. So just to bring it along the edge here as well, and just fill in that colour. I've stayed away from the middle intentionally until I've got this ready. Just taking that round the edge, and it colours onto the glue perfectly. Takes a second or two to dry. Yeah, I'm okay with that. And then again, keeping it nice and flat. I'm just going to use my tweezers to hold this down. I want to catch that little heart that's in the middle as well, which is also raised. So again, just by using the edge of the tip on the pen, you can see how it's just catching that raised area there. So we've got a clear seal with the paper in the background that matches the design that we started off with. And then we've got that blue highlighting it to sort of bring it all together. So what I'm going to do then, I've got, these were the ones that I were playing around with. So you can see, you know, you've got that one's a little bit more solid, I think. I put a bit more glue on that one. I've got 3 of the blue ones, and then I tried the black one. So I think we'll go with this one. This is really nice. It's got that slightly ununiform edge, which I like. So we'll pop those to one side and keep those for a later date. And I'm going to use this one, and this is going to be my sort of final embellishment here. Now again, we've got quite a difference between the height of this and what's going on underneath here. Now you can use the hot glue on the back of here, because obviously you've got paper on the back of it, so there's no risk. Sometimes there's a risk of remelting your wax seals if the glue's too hot, but all I did was use my 3D Collal glue. So all I'm going to do is take a couple of decent chunks of this and pop those underneath this edge. So I'm sort of aiming for roughly where that thread crossed it. So I've got a couple of nice big chunks of that, and then I'm just going to put a smaller one on this side of here, because this is going to go on to the design itself. And then all I'm going to do is sort of decide whereabouts I want it, and then press that into place. And that glue underneath now excuse me, will actually dry and keep its shape and hold that up in the air. Got a little tiny bit there that's just squidged out, so we'll get rid of the surplus there. Just get rid of that in my waste there. Make sure that they're not the tweezers are not coated in it. And you can see there that we've got that sort of embellishment in place. Just make sure I've got rid of the glue off my tools there, and then get the top back on here. I always sort of press until you can see that glue coming out of the edge there. You can see it before I make contact, and that will stop your gel from drying out. Okay, and then we've got our design. This will just take about 30 minutes for the 3D glue gel to cure and set, but you've got that detail at the ready with that beautiful glossy black typewriter. It actually looks real. Beautiful, beautiful stamp. And then last of all, as always, you know me, on the original design, we actually brought the beads out there. So I've just added across the design, drawing your eye from the embellishment here, up through the sentiment and up to that number. And then I felt as if it just needed a little bit of something there. So it's still an odd number. I normally work with 5s. It is still an odd number. We've got 7, just to add that on there. And then if you just look at the numbers, this one seemed to sort of fade into the background a little bit. So I've just taken my art liner, my black liner, and I just went round the outside of the numbers just to sort of give it a drop shadow. You could actually recut them in black and do a little drop shadow on the numbers, and it's just lifted them off the background that little bit. So that's my finished one. And then the piece inside, we started off the silver with a 6 1/4 inch square. I cut the same again from a piece of smooth white cardstock. I've used the same ink around the edge here to bring it all in together. Stamped my greeting, taken that lovely set of books, which was from that stamp set, if you remember here, a little set of books on the shelf. Used a couple of scraps of the paper to create a bookshelf. So this was a little tiny bit left over from the spots and the blue that we've used for the matte layers, and created a bookshelf. And I still felt it needed a bit of something. So I've just been round the edges with my pen and done the little wobbly line bit, just again to draw your eye into it. So that's my finished design, and this is going to my Vanessa. And if you missed at the top of the video, I am going to give her a plug again. She is an author. She's a self-published author. She writes under the pen name of Angel McGregor, and she has several novels that are available to buy either in Kindle or in paper copies, and she sells them through Amazon. So if you want to have a look for and have a look, if you like fantasy fiction, have a little look and let her know, you know, that if you've come from seeing it here, and see if you're interested. So yeah, thank you for joining me today. Consider giving me a thumbs up for the video if you've enjoyed watching, and I will be back very soon with another tutorial for you. So take care now. Happy crafting, guys. Bye bye.